Awesome, what's up guys? Lucas Evans, E3 Agriculture. We're down here in Eagle Lake, Texas on a lovely property working with an awesome landowner who you're gonna get to meet, Rebecca. She wants to really restore this land, start cultivating hemp to obviously as a cash crop, and then turning that hemp into sustainable structures on the property. So you're gonna get to see a walkthrough of the property, kind of a vision for what it's going to be. But really an overall reestablishment of native grasslands, and then getting a sustainable hemp crop growing with education, retreat, really reconnecting people with nature.
So one of the main reasons that we're starting this project is also land steward responsibility. For me, I have a deep connection to this land of growing up on this land. My aunts and uncles, my father, that generation grew up on this land as well before me. They're getting older and they are trying to pass the torch, I guess, and we're trying to figure out who's going to take the torch. And it seems like it might be me because I have so much connection to this land. The generation, other family members may not have that same connection because they didn't have they were a little bit younger, didn't grow up with grandmother and grandfather. And so I'm trying to show the next generation how important it is to connect with this land, and what this land, if they give to this land, what they can get, what they may be able to receive back from the land in return, and how to be a partner with the land and look at it as something beautiful and not something as a problem, and not look and find the value in it staying together. The land is saying it wants to stay together, and I think it's really super important. There's just so many good memories here for me, and when it came to the point of what are we gonna do with this land, I'm telling you, we kind of came to a loss at some point, and there was rumblings of selling the land. And I said, I just can't do it, I can't do it. I can't let this land turn into a subdivision and not be a continued part of me. And so that's also how this kind of started, to come out here and try to figure out, make something beautiful out of this. Make something beautiful that people appreciate, share the love of nature, share the love of this land, tell the story of how we're gonna do this, how we're gonna flip this into this land as it is now to something beautiful for wildlife, for us, for the community. The dream just could be endless, and the dream may be even bigger than what we think it is today.
So this is certainly one of the reasons we're on this property. We have multiflora rosa. It's commonly known as McCarthy rose. It was brought in as a hedge row, probably to Houston, for landowners, and sometimes they planted it for erosion control. We don't know exactly how or why it got here, but it's here. And it has, starting to take up quite a bit of space, and you can see it creates these mottes that are impenetrable. So cattle, humans can't get in it or around it. It's also covered in thorns, which is awesome. So we're going to be, using primarily mechanical to kind of beat this back, and then we try not to use any chemicals or herbicides, but we might do a little spot treatment here just to ensure that it doesn't come back. I'm thinking we'll probably hoe this out, and we looked at mulching, but they have a tendency to propagate really easily, so we want to be mindful of that, and then probably burn any residue that's left over. And then we'll probably come back in and replant right on top of these areas so that it, is outcompeted if it ever wants to have a little root come back out. But it, you can see, and we're gonna get some drone footage to really understand like how much land area this is taking up, but obviously no one's using this area. So in theory, over time, this could take over the whole property, and then you don't have any access to the property. But as you'll see, nature has come up with some solutions. We're just gonna give it an assist. So this is another problem species we have here, Chinese tallow, another invasive. They do provide cover and shade, but left out of hand, they will take over a property. And so we're gonna be addressing this probably through girdling and maybe mechanical removal, but making sure that we have a hand on this. So we are just getting some very unique rains out here for the first time in forever with our rainmaker. We got some friends showing up here to listen in, but as part of the bird wellness retreat, I think this is gonna be a great meeting spot. We've got an ephemeral stream that we're gonna be working on making flow, but you can see we have a dense kind of patch of Chinese tallow. And so rather than coming in here and clear cutting everything, and then who knows what comes with that, obviously erosion and potentially other worse things, we're probably gonna girdle a lot of these trees, which will provide good standing habitat, owls, birds and everything, but then giving these native trees, the oaks, the hackberries, the pecans, making sure they have a great habitat to grow and expand and some ground cover, so.
So what we're looking at here, as Rebecca was just saying, is like one of, I'm sure there are more, but when we start to look at land restoration, it's always good to have a very holistic perspective of the pros and cons of every plant, every circumstance, situation. And of course, it's like multiflora rose is super problematic. It's difficult to even like handle. There is benefit to that because the wildlife doesn't want to get in it. And so it's created what are essentially these natural exclosures protecting these young pecans, which otherwise would have been completely vulnerable. And so, yeah, that's something that can definitely be utilized to protect, you know, future plantings and whatnot. And I've seen this on other conservations where it just simply comes down to how do you naturally block wildlife from overgrazing or things like that. And sometimes, you know, on cliff faces where things just can't get access, you'll find really good hints of like historically what should have been on the landscape because it survived. So we're standing in the dry creek bed on Rebecca's property. And when we're looking at this, obviously this is where water is most consistently in the landscape. We're at the low point of the watershed here. And so what we want to think about whenever we're restoring this property is really just creating as much soil stability as we can and as much biodiversity. And so, because that's what the natural system wants to do. But what we'd like to focus on is replacing this high density of invasives like multiflora rose, little leaf ligustrum, Chinese tallow, and just creating that riparian buffer where the land meets the water, making that highly vegetated, highly stable banks, and then also figuring out points where we can mimic what, you know, species like beavers do whenever they create, you know, leaky weirs, permeable dams, so that we have the infrastructure when we do have these major flood events or just rain events in general, that the landscape is ready for that water and it can hold it so that, you know, the water table can rise over time. That's really what we're trying to do, is just, you know, the people forget that, you know, our streams and our creeks and our rivers, that is just the surface of the aquifer. And so it's not just flowing through, you know, the top of this soil. It's there because the water table is high enough in our aquifer to show and hold at that level. And so that's really what's happening, is all of our creeks and rivers in central Texas and the nation are kind of going dry, is that we're just taking out of our aquifers more than we're holding and putting back into the system.
So this is the main water feature here. We've got a riparian zone, low water, dry creek right now. Our mission's gonna be to try to get the water flowing there naturally. But we're gonna be managing some of these invasives, taking care of any of the natives that are already here and established, giving them some room, but making sure that we don't clear everything that will then lead to erosion and a lot of other invasives coming in and taking that. But yeah, this is going to be our riparian area that we're going to give a lot of love to. So hemp is really our cornerstone when we work with land. So it's obviously an economic driver that we're going to be bringing to Eagle Lake, but really it's also a great benefit to the soil. So it's a regenerative crop. It's got a deep taproot, so it'll break through this ground. It's going to clean out any issues that you may have. It's a great pollinator, so it's going to attract any bugs, insects, butterflies, and really just an overall amazing plant for the soil and the local environment. So also creates a good canopy, and so we're going to be using that in some of these areas that we remove invasives, so it'll come up and you don't have to use herbicides because it has a nice broad canopy that will shade out other crops. So then when those leaves drop, you're going to be adding biomass, and we're not going to be pulling out the roots. We're going to do minimal tillage. So really just building the soil and enriching the land. E3's mission in this whole grand scheme is really a spokesperson for the Blackland Prairie, and this is a coastal prairie, and using industrial hemp to make money from it, improve the soil. But this is kind of indicative of the area that we're going to be working with to establish hemp in this area. So luckily Rebecca has let it kind of rest for the last 10 or 15 years, and we're going to come in here, probably knock it down, not use any herbicides, but then spring of next year we'll have some hemp growing. Flatland and dry land too. So we're going to just be using what nature gives us. Something else that we're really after here is kind of breaking that paradigm around monocultures and industrial straight line agriculture, because that in and of itself causes a lot of issues. And not every property is a big square. So we're going to be working with what is already here. We've got pecans, we've got American elms, cypress, and then we've got, beautiful grasslands, a lot of native stuff. And so we're going to really be planting a mosaic that responds to the land itself, and then working out kind of a, trail system, educational pathway to really demonstrate and show people firsthand kind of this succession of nature, and then, a little bit of humans that are making money from hemp, and then back into the water system. So part of this, and really phase 2 and 3, is going to start to build structures out of hempcrete and really developing our seed to shelter model. So a lot of the hemp that will be grown here will then be processed and used to build really comfortable off-grid habitation for people, and really just showing that economy in and of itself. And so growing structures, rebuilding soil, rebuilding economies, cleaning the atmosphere, bringing back the water, and giving pollinators, people, and the planet a happy place to exist. So y'all got a good overview of this property. It's going to be an exciting project. We'll keep y'all informed as this really develops. But if you're a landowner, if you know somebody who's got property who really wants to put it to work, but not destroy it, not sell it to your everyday developer, reach out to us at E3 Agriculture. We've got a website on Instagram. It's Texas Hemp Processors. But looking forward to really restoring Texas and making this world a better place to live.